This Audi S4 offers a more sophisticated package than ever, with improved quattro four-wheel drive, a quick-shifting 8-speed sports automatic gearbox, and a potent turbocharged 354 PS 3-litre V6 beneath the bonnet. It is perhaps not the most engaging car of this kind you can buy, but it's arguably the most complete package out there.
Want a premium badged middle management compact executive model? Well, so do a lot of other people. You have done well for yourself though. Well enough to ensure that the kind of model of this sort that you choose can be very fast indeed. A car perhaps like this one, the Audi S4. Now, Ingolstadt calls this the 9th generation version of this model, though we're not quite sure how they count that back. S4s have only been based on the A4 body shape since 1997, and since then Audi's continually changed its mind about the kind of engine this S model should have. 265 PS, 2.7 litre twin turbo V6 was used until 2003, then 344 PS, 4.2 litre V8 replaced it until 2009, when 333 PS supercharged 3-litre V6 arrived. Now, this particular model launched in mid-2016 and based around the 5th generation A4 design, also uses a 3-litre V6, but this time it's turbocharged rather than supercharged, and it puts out 354 PS. Now, it's the same engine used by Audi's even more powerful RS4 model, though in this case you don't get the additional small electric turbocharger that makes that very top variant almost frighteningly fast. And you don't really need it because this S4 is already very quick indeed. So fast, in fact, that the huge 500 Nm torque figure delivered by that big V6 is far too much for the 7-speed S-tronic twin-clutch auto gearbox that's used elsewhere in the A4 range and by the previous generation version of this car. So that transmission has been changed too and replaced by an 8-speed Tiptronic setup that works with the latest and more driver-orientated version of Audi's quattro four-wheel drive system. The result for S4 buyers is a powerful package that's offered in both saloon and Avant estate guises and aimed most directly at premium rivals like BMW's 340i and the Mercedes-AMG C43. The kind of car, in other words, for people who want to go very quickly, but who can't quite stretch to, or perhaps don't either want or need, the race-tuned performance of an M3, a C63, or indeed an RS4. Considered choice then, and potentially a very clever one. Let's put this Audi to the test. If you're wondering what the difference is between an S4 and an RS4, then let's try and explain it without using stats. Now, if you've got an RS, then you've got a Jekyll and Hyde sort of super sports model that can cruise happily around without exciting any attention until you need it to perform. Whereupon it becomes something quite different, altogether harder edged and more aggressive. Now, an S4 isn't quite like that. Yes, it does do the cruising about bit as smoothly as you would expect it to, but when the time comes for action, it doesn't hurl you back against these S Supersport seats in a frenzied blur of tire-spinning speed. Instead, the revs rise, the engine note becomes a bit more urgent, and the horizon scrolls towards you as if it's on fast forward as you press on. For sure, it is very fast, but it's anything but frantic, which is why, whereas the RS4 is a bona fide junior supercar, the S4 is merely a very, very rapid A4. But that's okay. A very, very rapid A4 is exactly what most potential S4 buyers are signing up for. Now, this one, like its 2009 model predecessor, uses a 3-litre TFSI V6 beneath the bonnet, but there the similarities between the two cars end. That old model supercharger has been dispensed with in favour of turbo induction, which boosts output from 333 to 354 PS and torque from 440 to 500 Newton meters. Now, that final figure is important because that is a level of pulling power that's too great for the previous S4's 7-speed dual-clutch S-tronic auto gearbox to cope with, hence the installation here of a more conventional 8-speed Tiptronic self-shifter. The quattro four-wheel drive system that all seriously sporting Audis have is also quite a bit more sophisticated this time around. It's quicker reacting and it's more rearward biased in an effort to get this Audi dynamically closer to the potent rear-driven BMW 340i and Jaguar XE models that the magazines keep insisting represent this car's nemesis. Now, we don't agree. In our climate, you really need four-wheel drive in cars as powerful as the ones in this segment. And the only other comparably powerful rival that has it is the similarly priced Mercedes-AMG C43. Now that would be our S4 benchmark. And it was clearly Audi's too, because the performance figures delivered by those two models are absolutely identical. To be specific, rest to 62 miles an hour in the saloon variant occupies 4.7 seconds. It's 4.9 seconds in the Avant version, en route to a maximum that Ingolstadt still rather pointlessly insists on capping artificially at 155 mph. In acceleration terms, that makes this model 0.3 of a second quicker than its predecessor, identically as quick as a rival Mercedes-AMG C43, and nearly half a second quicker than a rival BMW 340i M Sport. It might also be worth pointing out that this kind of pace makes this Audi only a fraction slower than the old post-2012 third generation RS4, and that car had a 450 PS 4.2 litre V8 beneath the bonnet. In fact, we reckon this S4 is probably a bit faster than that car because its pulling power is available over a wider rev range and it's accessible from as little as 1370 RPM. Handling represents another area that's well up to RS standards, or at least it will be if you pay extra for the sport differential, which at speed through tight corners can constantly vary the amount of torque that's distributed to each of the rear wheels. Now, rather than subtly braking an individual wheel to transfer traction to one with more grip in the way that a torque vectoring system would, the sport differential instead sends additional wheel speed to each rear wheel in a way that, well, pushes you around each corner. Now the effect is a smoother, quicker and less obtrusive way of exiting a bend. Now, we don't have that option fitted here, but we've still been pretty impressed with the way this S4 tackles the turns. Now, part of that is down to the redeveloped quattro system, which usually directs 60% of torque to the back wheels, but if conditions demand it, it can send up to 85% of power back there, or if necessary, as much as 70% to the front. Now, the setup's been designed to work with a torque vectoring system that applies minimal brake interventions to the wheels on the inside of any given curve before they start to spin, and that maximizes traction and makes handling more precise, more agile and more stable. The whole package isn't what you'd want if you were going to go tyre smoking on an airfield, but it is absolutely what you need in the far more likely scenario of wanting an astonishingly rapid point-to-point super saloon for super quick progress on secondary roads in poor conditions. Our only reservation really is an issue Audi's engineers have traditionally struggled with, that of steering feedback. And that's an issue that affects this car as much as it does the S5 Coupe, Sportback and Cabriolet models that share this S4's exact same mechanical specification. Pressing on through corners at speed, you simply don't feel as connected to what's going on beneath you as you would at the helm of a rival 340i or XES. Now that really does make quite a lot of difference to the sheer engagement factor that you'd maybe hope for from a car like this. And without that extra nth of steering response, you're never really invited to push that little bit further. Or, as one writer put it, this S4 doesn't question your willpower every time you get behind the wheel. Disappointingly, specifying the extra cost dynamic steering option doesn't really help in this regard either, varying the rate at which the front wheels turn to suit different circumstances without necessarily telling you very much about what it's doing while it's doing it. Now, your Audi Centre salesperson will point out that one of the functions of the standard Drive Select driving dynamic system is to vary steering weight, but, well, steering feel is different from steering weight. Now, Porsche knows this, and as the brand gets more involved in the development of future Audi S models, they already co-designed the engine in this one, you'd hope that things would change. I mentioned Drive Select. Well, that's the same setup as you get in any ordinary A4 with selectable comfort, dynamic, efficiency, auto and individual Drive Select modes that, as well as dealing with the steering, also tweak the throttle response, the stability control thresholds, and if it's fitted, the impact of the sport differential system. Plus, of course, the Drive Select settings alter the response of that 8-speed Tiptronic transmission I mentioned at the beginning. Now, as ever on S4, there's no manual gearbox option. Now, this is a supposedly old tech torque converter self-shifting setup. It doesn't feel old tech to use, being, in our experience, one of the faster reacting automatics out there. The computer software throws in a lovely exhaust cackle on full throttle upshifts, while downshifts are aggressive when you're in dynamic mode, but seamlessly smooth otherwise. The other thing that the Drive Select modes can influence is ride quality, but only if, rather annoyingly, you spend extra on the CDC continuous damper control system. A really well-tuned suspension system, like the one on a rival Jaguar XES, for example, doesn't necessarily need adaptive damping. And at first glance, you'd think that this Audi setup ought to fall into that category. I mean, it's a sophisticated 5-link arrangement on the front and rear axles that precisely separates longitudinal and transverse forces. In the case of this S4, though, the package has been hobbled by the non-negotiable fitment of a lowered S Sport suspension that drops the car by 23mm and robs it of a crucial degree of wheel travel, especially at the front. That means that a standard S4 will crash through potholes and over speed humps that even a performance-orientated family model ought really to deal with in its stride. Things are slightly better with the CDC adaptive damping fitted and the Drive Select system set in comfort, but it is a little irritating to have to keep doing that when ideally you just want to leave the car in the dynamic mode that gives you a few more of the engine's oral fireworks. So, where does all that leave us? With the ultimate sports saloon or estate available in this segment of the market? Well, probably not, but we can still totally understand why target buyers might like this car very much indeed. Now, if you've tried and enjoyed a previous generation S4, then this one will probably be exactly what you're looking for. And if you haven't, well, it might well be exactly what you need. Has Audi been perhaps a little too subtle with the way that the S4 is configured? Well, possibly. Certainly, if it weren't for the S4 badge work, you'd have to be something of an Audi product expert to tell this model apart from the ordinary S-line trimmed version of the standard A4. To be fair, key rivals show almost equal aesthetic restraint, and as this car tries to do, attempt instead to emphasise sporting elegance, poise and precision. As ever, there's the option of the Avant Estate body style as an alternative to the Saloon, and both variants seize the opportunity offered by this model's sophisticated MLB Evo platform to offer buyers a slightly larger car than before. Time to get up close and personal here at the front, where the bonnet wraps around the upper edges of the wings, features 4 pronounced contours and flows down into the brand's trademark 3-dimensional single-frame grille, where dual aluminium crossbars are finished in grey matte with chromed inlays. Flanking the radiator are sculpted LED headlights with distinctive serrated lower borders, and these are lamps that can be optionally ordered, as in this case with Audi's intelligent matrix LED technology. That's recognisable by its bright white crystal shine. Now here, each headlamp divides its high beam into 15 individual light emitting diodes that are activated or dimmed in 64 stages based on traffic and road condition information gathered by an integrated camera. Further down, these corner air inlets have arrow-shaped aluminium-coated fins, and they're designed to guide a portion of the airflow into the wheel housings. From the side, you get a better perspective on this S4 model's slightly larger dimensions this time around. It's 25mm longer than before in the Saloon guise and 16mm wider too, yet the roof height remains the lowest in the segment, which explains this 4-door version's class-leadingly slippery 0.29 CD drag coefficient. In profile, as from the front, tiny details differentiate this high-performance variant from its humbler A4 S-line stablemate. Things like these aluminium premium effect door mirror housings, the chrome trim on the door handles, and the V-spoke design 18 or 19-inch alloy wheels through which you can glimpse S4 branded black brake calipers. These lower side skirts are the same ones you get with normal S-line trim, but otherwise it's all pretty familiar stuff. So as usual with an A4, there's this pronounced shoulder line that starts at the corners of the headlamps and flows back above the door handles to the rear light clusters. And there are nice little touches, like the way that the exterior mirrors are now mounted on the front doors as they would be on a sports car. Move to the rear and you'll find a lower diffuser that's far more prominent than it would be on any standard stock A4, finished in matte grey and punctuated by twin oval chrome tailpipes on either side. Another unique S4 touch is the subtle black honeycomb grille trimming strip that's built into this contoured rear bumper. Otherwise, the finishing may well be familiar with this subtle boot spoiler sitting just above LED tail lights that feature scrolling indicators and a multifaceted 3D design that uses no fewer than 48 LEDs to create a really distinctive nighttime signature. As ever though with an Audi, it's the interior that'll really sell you this car. Now the Ingolstadt brand isn't as far ahead of its rivals as it used to be in this regard, but this remains the defining cabin in the class, with surprising headroom, wraparound design and a really premium feeling of space and safety. Now you need some guidance and the elements to set this S4 model apart, since they're not all that easy to spot at first glance. The 3-spoke sports steering wheel is bespoke, as are these brilliant S Supersport Napa leather trimmed seats with a lovely quilted finish and pronounced side bolsters. Otherwise, apart from lovely Alcantara trimming on the doors and a few elements of S branding, the ambiance is exactly as it would be in any plushly specified A4 model. So an almost unbroken line of air vents stretch from one side of the fascia to the other, sitting above a 3D trim inlay panel that can be finished in brushed aluminium, piano black, or as here in carbon fibre. To your left, the centre console area has been visually separated away to give the upper area of the dash more of a floating feel. And small details add to the feeling of quality, like the black leather trimmed gear lever that also acts as a handrest for the infotainment system controller, the touch switches for the 3-zone climate control, and the way that the temperature displays have been incorporated into the ventilation system's rotary dials. In fact, wherever you look, touch or feel, there are treats. The buttons click nicely, the column stalks feel good, and the low-rent plastics you'd find further down in most premium rivals are noticeable by their absence. Only storage space could be better. The glove box is small and not lockable as standard, while the door bins are slim and the console box between the seats is rather shallow here. As mentioned earlier though, I like the seats, anatomically shaped and perfectly positioned in front of a wheel, through which in a standard S4 you'd view 2 conventional analog dials separated by a 7-inch colour driver's information screen. Here though, as you can see, we've got something much nicer than that. The optional virtual cockpit replaces the entire instrument binnacle with a 12.3-inch LCD colour monitor that has a layout that's fully digital and customisable with smart 3D graphics and highly detailed effects. It can be viewed in 3 ways. The classic display shows the usual speedometer, rev counter and gear indicator readouts. Alternatively, the progressive display reduces the size of those items and brings functions like the navigation map or your media settings to the fore. S4 buyers also get a 3rd sport display that prioritises the rev counter. You can also access lap timing data should you feel the need to take this car on a track day. Now, we're going to see many more virtual instrument systems of this kind of future years, but this one really sets the standard they have to all try to reach when it comes to clarity and ease of use. And we think you've really got to have it with this car. Anything that this setup can't tell you will almost certainly be covered by the slimline MMI infotainment display that dominates the top of the dashboard. It's 8.3 inches in size on this model because Audi's top MMI Navigation Plus with MMI Touch system is a standard part of this S4 specification, with its crisp 3D maps and responsive NVIDIA graphics. Now, a little disappointingly, it doesn't rise out of the fascia in the way the screen does on a cheaper Audi S3, but in compensation, the thin tablet-style display is now touch-sensitive with neat pinch and swipe functionality, and it comes presented in a classy silver-coloured magnesium frame. If you don't want to cover the thing with sticky fingerprints, then there's voice activation, steering wheel buttons, and of course the usual chrome-edged rotary controller in front of the gear stick, which with this premium MMI package comes with a surface on which commands can be traced with your fingertips. The useful Audi smartphone interface is of course incorporated with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone connectivity, allowing everything that you access in your handset to be duplicated onto the dashboard screen. And the impressive Audi Connect system is also included, via which you'll be able to use a whole raft of 4G online Wi-Fi options, powered by a superfast LTE module that'll give you download speeds of up to 100 megabits per second. So, time to take a seat in the rear, which is where theoretically you ought to most notice the benefit of the extra 12 millimetres of wheelbase length that this generation model enjoys over its predecessor. Now, Audi says there's 23 mils more legroom back here than there was before, but to be frank, it doesn't feel that much bigger. Now, partly this is because of the low roofline, although that's less of a limiting factor for headroom than we thought it might be. More of an issue is this rather prominent centre transmission tunnel. Still, 3 adults are very rarely carried at the back of this kind of car, and 2 will be as comfortable as it's possible to be in a compact executive model. Time to take a look out back. Flip the boot on this saloon variant, and the 480 litre capacity that was revealed is the same as you get in a rival BMW 340i or Mercedes AMG C43, but it's 25 litres more than a Jaguar XES would provide. If you need more, there's the versatility of a 40-20-40 split folding rear backrest, the centre part of which is very useful if you need to carry longer items like skis. Flattening the seat reveals up to 965 litres of space, but if you're someone who's likely to be doing that very often, then you'll be better off going for the Avant Estate model, which offers a standard powered tailgate, and that opens to reveal a 505 litre boot, extendable to 1510 litres. An extra cost storage pack provides, amongst other things, a fold-out bag hook, luggage nets, and a 12-volt socket. Plus, there are the usual optional rail systems and load organisers for Avant customers. Now, there's no additional carriage capacity beneath the boot floor, but that's because, refreshingly, Audi provides you with a spare wheel rather than one of those irritating tyre inflation kits. You'll need a £45,000 budget for this S4 saloon, and there's a £1,400 premium if you want the alternative Avant Estate body style. Now, it's also worth pointing out that essentially the same mechanical package is provided by the A5-based S5 models. An S5 in coupe or 5-door sportback form costs £2,400 more than this S4 saloon, but for an S5 cabriolet, you're going to need to spend around £7,000 more. Now, all these models come in a single mechanical configuration that sees the same 354 PS 3-litre V6 turbo petrol engine mated to quattro 4-wheel drive and an 8-speed Tiptronic auto gearbox. On to the S4 value proposition. Now, we'd say that the Mercedes-AMG C43 4MATIC is the most direct rival to this car because it's the only one that offers 4-wheel drive. And the Mercedes is just as fast as this Audi, it's fractionally more powerful, it's a bit more expensive, but perhaps most significantly, it'll cost you about 10% more to run. Otherwise, you're looking at rear-wheel drive alternatives, probably something like a BMW 340i M Sport. That's a model that's about £5,000 cheaper, and a car that all the magazines will tell you is a better driver's choice. Now, we wouldn't argue with that, but we would also point out that the BMW is about 30 PS down on this Audi, so it takes nearly half a second longer to get from rest to 62. Well, at least in the dry. In the wet, quite frankly, a 340i driver wouldn't see which way this S4 went. Are there other alternatives? Well, not too many. Amongst less well-known competitors, Jaguar's very similarly priced XES is probably the most obvious car that might interest an S4 buyer. But when you look at the much higher running cost figures of its supercharged 3-litre V6, it becomes clear why Audi abandoned that form of forced induction in favour of turbocharging for this generation S4 model. Otherwise, the only other directly comparable models you can consider would be, well, very rare rare choices indeed, and they would sadly with even higher running costs than the Jaguar does. So for around £4,000 less than S4 money, an Infiniti Q50 S Sport 3-litre T offers 405 PS but less pulling power. For about £10,000 more than this Audi, Maserati Ghibli 3-litre V6 talks the talk, but the extra weight and 24 PS power deficit means it can't match this S4's overall performance. So, if having considered all of that, you conclude that it is an S4 that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Audi has been with the standard spec. So, let's take a look at that. Now, we've talked about the standard auto gearbox and quattro setup. Other mechanical fundamentals to the S4 package include firm, lowered S Sport suspension and an S model enhanced braking system with branded brake calipers. You also get 18-inch 5 V-spoke alloy wheels with a matte black diamond cut finish, along with full LED headlights with washers and high beam assist. Plus, of course, there's lots of subtle S-model styling tweaks. The radiator grille, the side inlets, the rear diffuser, the rear spoiler, even the tailpipes and the mirror housings. All of this is S4 specific. As, of course, is much of the interior trim. The embossed front S Super Sport seats, for example, which can be specified in either black, grey or red. They're electrically powered, heated and finished with fine Napa leather, with leatherette trimming extended onto the lower centre console, the door armrests and the door pulls. The gear lever's bespoke, as is the 3-spoke leather sports steering wheel, through which you view a set of S instrument dials that are separated by a 7-inch colour driver's information system display. Also standard is top-level media connectivity, courtesy of Audi's MMI Navigation Plus setup, which works via an 8.3-inch centre-dash screen and which includes 3 years of access to the suite of Audi Connect infotainment services. Audi Connect is something we really need to tell you a bit more about. It gives you an LTE data transmission module that establishes high-speed 4G Internet 3 access and creates in the S4 a Wi-Fi hotspot. It also allows you to navigate with images from Google Earth, access the Google Points of Interest search function with voice control, and use a web radio setup with stations from all around the world. Through the Connect system, you can access special in-car versions of your Facebook and your Twitter pages, and it's also possible to read, write and send text messages and emails. The included online media streaming package will give you access to millions of music tracks, and there's also a clever Audi online traffic information system. This uses live traffic information to reroute you around jams, plus the setup can deliver parking information, displaying details on parking lots and parking garages almost anywhere you're likely to go. Otherwise, it's all much as you would get in any normal mid-spec Audi A4 model, which means that, as with all A4s, you get the brand's Drive Select vehicle dynamic system that allows you to tweak the throttle, the steering and the gear shift timings to suit the way that you want to drive. Other key features include auto headlamps and wipers, rear parking sensors, an alarm and LED rear lights with dynamic scrolling indicators. Plus, on the Avant S4, there are aluminium roof rails and a power-operated tailgate that works with an electrically retracting load area cover. Now, as for the usual A4 series interior features, in case you're not familiar with them, well, you can tick off things like 3-zone climate control, a keyless go push-button starter, cruise control with a speed limiter, and an auto-dimming rear-view mirror. As you'd expect from this class of car, the infotainment package integrates Bluetooth phone connectivity, access to the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto systems, and a 10-speaker, 180-watt DAB Audi sound system. All of that's controllable either via the MMI controller, by voice through buttons on the multifunction leather-stitched steering wheel, or via that centre-dash colour touchscreen. Enough on the standard S4 specification. Time to discuss what you can do to embellish it, as almost all owners will undoubtedly want to do. In fact, we go as far as saying that to preserve prime used values, there are a few key features that you probably really need to have. In a few years' time, buyers on the second-hand market are quite possibly going to favour models that are fitted with optional features like larger 19-inch wheels and adaptive S Sport suspension with damping control. Plus, ideally, your S4 should be fitted with the optional Quattro with Sport differential package that distributes variable amounts of driving force to each rear wheel, improving stability and agility when you take tight corners at speed. Future buyers would probably also quite like to find 3 further items that have been fitted to our test car. A high-end 19-speaker, 755-watt Bang & Olufsen 3D sound system, the Audi virtual cockpit instrument dials, and cutting-edge matrix LED headlamps. Now, those matrix lights are a real nighttime talking point, incorporating sensors and an inbuilt camera that detects other road users as well as ambient light in built-up areas. Now, the beams then react by dipping individual LEDs to prevent dazzle, while still fully illuminating the remainder of the road. Now, they even draw from the vehicle's navigation data to anticipate corners, adjusting LEDs as you negotiate the bend. Both the virtual cockpit and the matrix lights can be ordered separately or as part of a light and vision pack that also throws in extended coloured LED interior lighting. Alternatively, there is a vision pack which bundles the virtual cockpit feature up with a head-up display. On to less significant extra stuff that you could look at. There's a dynamic steering option that varies the steering ratio based on your speed and the drive select mode that you've chosen. But in our experience, it doesn't really succeed in offering the kind of feel and feedback that you really want. Now, if we were towing regularly, as some S4 Avant owners may be, then we'd want the detachable tow bar, which comes with a system that diminishes trailer sway. What else? Well, we'd be tempted by this model's parking assistance pack with its 360-degree camera system and parking assist setup that searches for spaces and then steers you into them. On the Avant model, we'd also want to look at the lovely, huge panoramic glass roof, while on this Saloon, you can add in an electric slide and tilt sunroof. Other key options include the Audi phone box system that wirelessly charges your smartphone and improves its reception quality via the roof antenna. If you want to keep ticking boxes, then you could add in the advanced key keyless entry system, rear view camera, privacy glass with front acoustic glazing, power folding mirrors, heated steering wheel, heated seats in the rear, roll-up blinds for the rear side windows, and a heated windscreen. In terms of the aesthetics for your S4, well, if budget allows, you can really go to town. And we've already talked about adding larger 19-inch wheels, which can be ordered in either 10-spoke or 5-spoke V-design form, the latter finished in either grey or matte titanium. And you might want to have those rims with evocative red brake calipers peeping out through the spokes. Your Audi Centre will talk you through the various optional metallic, pearl effect and Audi exclusive paint colours. And there's also a black styling pack that adds black accents to the front grille, the air intakes and the window trims. Moving inside, you can specify interior inlays in piano black, or as in this case, carbon atlas, and you can add an R8 style flat bottom steering wheel. So, on to practical touches. The storage pack gives you nets in the front seat backrests, an extra storage compartment below the light switch on the driver's side, a lockable glove box, a cup holder in the rear armrest, and a luggage net, a bag hook, and a 12-volt socket in the boot. Owners of the Avant body style, the kind of people who might want the optional detachable tow bar, might want to organise boot items via an optional rails package that comes with a load securing kit. There's also an optional hands-free tailgate opening system. You simply wave your foot beneath the bumper if you're approaching the car laden down with bags. And as you'd expect, there's also the option of the usual roof bars for luggage boxes, skis, snowboards and bikes. On to safety. Now, like all A4 models, this one gets a collision avoidance system that Audi calls Pre-Sense City. And this is one of those setups that constantly scans the road ahead in search of potential accident hazards. If it detects one, you'll be warned. If you don't respond, or you aren't able to, then the system will automatically brake the car, and it should be able to avoid a collision at speeds of under 19 miles an hour. If you are going faster than that, then the Pre-Sense City system will reduce the speed and soften the impending impact. If you do hit something, you panic, then a standard multi-collision brake assist system will automatically take over the braking duties to avoid the possibility of skidding and further collisions. As for more common standard safety features, well, rather meanly, Audi does make you pay extra for a hill hold assist feature that stops you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. But otherwise, all the main bases are covered. so you can tick off ISOFIX child seat fastenings, anti-whiplash head restraints, and a tyre pressure loss indicator, plus twin front, side and curtain airbags with rear side bags, an extra cost option. In addition, as expected in this segment, there's a complete roster of electronic acronyms, including the usual electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control. There's also a rest recommendation feature that monitors your driving for drowsiness and alerts you if necessary to stop for a restorative coffee. It is always possible to go further though, and if you want extra peace of mind, then your Audi Centre salesperson will doubtless point you towards the choicest elements of the safety technology that's been developed for this car. So we'll start with the Parking Assistance Pack Advanced package that includes 5 key features. A cross traffic assist rear feature alerts you to oncoming cars if you're reversing out of a space, and an exit warning system monitors the rear and side of your S4 as you get out of it, alerting you if vehicles or cyclists are approaching from behind. On the move, Audi Side Assist works as a blind spot monitor, warning you if you're dangerously about to pull out to overtake in the path of another vehicle. Plus, there are Audi Presense Basic and Presense Rear features that, in the event of an inevitable front or rear impact, optimally prepare the car to best survive it. The other, even more significant combined safety feature option you'll be offered with this car is called the Driver Assistance Pack Tour package. Now this gives you 7 key extra electronic safety items, well, that really could make the difference between a near miss and a very bad day. So let's run through them. Now we'll start with a system that the Ingolstadt brand calls Presense Front. Now you remember the standard Presense City setup I was just telling you about, that at low speeds scans the road ahead for collisions and can automatically brake the car to avoid them. Well, wouldn't it be good if that setup operated at higher speeds too? Well, with Presense Front, it does. Even cleverer is what we'd see as, well, probably the most sophisticated driver assistance pack tour feature. Now that's something Audi calls adaptive cruise control with stop and go and traffic jam assist. This system's there to automatically keep your S4 a set distance behind the car in front on the highway, warning you if you're too close to another vehicle and able to automatically stop you and then start you off again if you come across a tailback. The traffic jam assist bit also frees you up in slow to medium speed queues, allowing the car to automatically brake, accelerate and steer for you at speeds of up to 37 miles an hour. Yes, really. Haven't finished either. An equally clever predictive efficiency assist system works with that setup, adjusting your Audi's speed for maximum efficiency and also offering driving tips that could create fuel savings of up to 10%. Well, if you think that's neat, then check out the 4th driver assistance pack tour feature. It's called Turn Assist. Now, let's say you're turning out of a junction and you haven't seen an oncoming car or bike. Turn Assist will automatically apply the brakes and prevent the accident. If only every car had that feature. Other more familiar inclusions in the pack run to traffic sign recognition that can picture road signs and display them on the dash, Audi Active Lane Assist, which is there to gently steer you back into lane if you inadvertently drift out of it, and a so-called collision avoidance assistant that tweaks the steering to keep the car stable in emergency manoeuvres. It's all very reassuring. A lot has happened in terms of engine efficiency since the old V8 powered S4 models used to stray into single-digit fuel consumption during hard use. The supercharged 3-litre V6 that was used in this car's predecessor was of course much better in that regard, but returns which looked pretty okay back in 2009, 29.1 mpg on the combined cycle and 225 grams per kilometre of CO2 would be significantly off-putting to likely business buyers now. Hence the extra effort expended into making sure that this S4 is a much more credible contender in that regard. The lighter MQB Evo chassis helps, of course, as does the fact that 14 kilograms has been trimmed from the weight of Audi's 3-litre V6 TFSI engine, and they're both major contributing factors to a 75 kilogram weight saving over the previous model. This unit switch from supercharging to turbocharging obviously makes it more efficient, but well, there's more to it than that. Like the brand's impressive 2-litre TFSI engine, this power plant uses special high-pressure injection valves, also a shortened compression phase, and an elevated geometric compression ratio that works with a clever valveless system to balance the conflicting needs of power and efficiency. But forget all the tech talk, what are the results? Well, quite simply, they're class leading. A rival BMW 340i is a fraction lighter than an S4, and it doesn't have to carry around the weight of a four-wheel drive system. But even so, it'll cost you slightly more to run than this Audi, as will this car's other key competitor, the Mercedes-AMG C43. To be specific, an S4 Saloon on standard 18-inch wheels manages 38.7 mpg on the combined cycle and 166 grams per kilometre of CO2. Fitted out with the larger 19-inch rims we're trying here, and the figures are 37.7 mpg and 170 grams per kilometre. For an S4 Avant, you're looking at 37.7 mpg and 171 grams per kilometre on 18-inch rims, and 37.2 mpg and 175 grams per kilometre on the 19 inches. And those CO2 figures mean a reasonable benefit in kind rate of 30%. Of course, this Audi's relatively impressive showing isn't solely down to reduced weight and its redesigned engine. Other important factors include a more slippery shape and an engine stop-start system that cuts in as you coast to a halt rather than waiting until you get to a complete stop. Now that means that in traffic the engine is obviously off more often than it will otherwise be. It's also worth mentioning that the automatic transmission has an efficient freewheeling mode that cuts in when you come off the accelerator and cruise at speeds between 35 and 100 miles an hour. That feature disengages the engine for greater efficiency and then re-engages it immediately and almost seamlessly when you either accelerate or brake. Magazine tests have pointed out that across the board, the fuel and CO2 figures we just quoted can be, well, difficult to achieve in real-world motoring, but then that's not an exclusive issue to Audi. Much is going to depend on the driver, hence the Ingolstadt brand's efforts with this car to help the person at the wheel do more when it comes to efficiency. So, as usual with the company's models, there's an efficiency setting on the Drive Select vehicle dynamics system, and this tweaks the air conditioning, the gear shift timings, and the throttle response for maximum frugality. Going further than that requires use of the optional predictive efficiency assist setup that Audi says could potentially improve your fuel economy by as much as 10%. It works with navigation data and the adaptive cruise control system that comes as part of the extra cost Driver Assistance Pack Tour package. How? Well, by analysing any given route once set to decide how the journey could be undertaken more efficiently. So in doing this, the speed limits, the traffic signs, the bends and all the roundabouts that you'll be encountering along the way are all taken into account. And the setup then offers driving tips that'll help you achieve better running cost returns. So, perhaps for example, a junction is out of your sight around the next bend and you could take your foot off the throttle a little bit earlier. Get onto the motorway, and with the adaptive cruise control system activated, predictive efficiency assist will automatically make all the frugal driving adjustments for you. So if it knows you're going to be travelling for a few junctions, it'll engage that freewheeling mode that I just mentioned at cruising speeds for greater efficiency. What else? What about maintenance? Well, service intervals vary between 9,000 and 19,000 miles, depending on how hard you drive the car. And somewhere in that span, the need for an impending garage visit will flash up in the instrument binnacle. In fact, this car can even book its own service appointments via an Audi Connect safety and service system app. As well as providing emergency calling and online roadside assistance, this feature can, at the appropriate time, send a service request direct to your local dealer. And alternatively, you can sign up for Audi Service Request, which uses the onboard Wi-Fi to enable your car to communicate with the dealer. And as your S4 nears a time when work will be needed, the diagnostics alert your nominated local Audi centre, who will then contact you to book in a convenient time. Maintenance costs can be kept down if you go for one of the prepaid servicing plans that you'll be offered at initial purchase. Another neat service your Audi centre can offer you is the so-called Audi Cam system. Here, technicians carrying out workshop inspections on your S4 can focus a handheld Audi Cam camera on specific problems and accompany the image with a verbal diagnosis to create footage that can be sent to your computer or to your smartphone. Now that way, you'll know precisely what work you're authorising on your car. On to the warranty. Now, all contenders in this class get 3 years of cover, but whereas you won't get your mileage limited in this period if you opt for something made by BMW or Mercedes, Audi rather meanly restricts you to 60,000 miles. Optional extra cost warranty packages can extend that cover to either 4 years and 75,000 miles or 5 years and 90,000 miles. If the worst happens and the car breaks down, then there's free roadside assistance included for the first 36 months of ownership. We should tell you about insurance groupings too. You're looking at Group 30E for both S4 body styles. I'll finish by covering residual values, which, as usual with this Ingolstadt brand, are predicted to be very strong, reflective of the unsurpassed build quality on offer here. Now, based on the depreciation performance of the previous S4, experts Cat Monitor reckon that this generation version will be able to offer the best residual values in the class, likely to be worth 48% of its original value after a 3-year, 60,000 mile ownership period. To give you some perspective on that, that's 10% better than a rival BMW 340i M Sport, and even 8% better than a rarer rival like Maserati's Ghibli S. Quite a lot has changed with this generation S4 and quite a lot hasn't. Now, it's a much classier overall package, both inside and out, and the pokier turbo engine now makes it feel properly quick again, like the old V8 models used to be. But the underlying demeanour on offer here is very little different. I mean, an S4 is a devastatingly quick tarmac cross-country tool. Its improved quattro four-wheel drive system gives this model wet weather traction that most rivals still can't match. As ever though, if you want a sporty model of this sort to be some sort of dynamic hooligan, some sort of junior M3, well, you probably do better looking elsewhere. A typical S4 owner is really above all that sort of thing though. He or she doesn't want the thrill-a-minute nervousness of an M3, a C63 or even an RS4, and isn't looking for a car that will replicate that with slightly less power for slightly less money. So Audi has delivered to that brief. Now, unless you do something stupid, this car won't introduce you to any sort of fear factor. Instead, it offers speed that you can control confidently, an extra traction that's telling in the kind of conditions that so often characterize this country. So, would you take it on a track day? Almost certainly not. Would you enjoy a high-speed trip through the Alps in one? Absolutely, yes. None of this, of course, endears the S4 to the tyre-smoking folk who write for the car magazines. If you talk to someone about to write a cheque for a car of this kind, though, so many of them will be more inclined to opt for the Audi. No, for sure it isn't perfect. Certainly the steering could do with a little more feel. Still, most people will happily accept that in return for four-wheel drive traction that in this segment only a Mercedes C43 can match. And that's a car that costs more to run and which can't match this Audi's beautifully crafted cabin. In summary then, the S4 in this guise seems finally to have found the right balance between speed and sensibility. Now, if we had to own a car for a week from this segment, it wouldn't be the one we'd choose. If we had to choose one to live with though, well, it'd be very difficult to resist. Very fast, very smart, very Audi.